I buy stationery.
Yeah.
I'm a stationery freak. I mean, I really do buy unnecessary amounts of stationery. And I have cupboards filled with all sorts of different types of... I love graph papers of all different sorts. They're like very expensive Jermyn Street shirt materials, you know. And I discovered after my father died that he also had been a secret freak of the same sort of thing, that all of his cupboards were filled with these very expensive, different denominations, logarithmic graph papers.
It's a pretty subtle way of demonstrating your status, isn't it? Rushing out in the street with a piece of logarithmic graph paper.
Well, it's a very subtle and refined and rather sort of Bloomsbury way of showing how you are doing, you know.
But maybe you could have a special briefcase that you dropped, and it all fell out like that. Oh, sorry, this is my new
but also,
15 calendar.
It's people, do you see that logarithmic graph?
Envious groups for...
But there are these wonderfully subtly tinted papers that you can get. I mean, stationery shops have sprung up now in the way... I mean, there were no really, you know, wide-ranging stationery shops back in the 60s. But now there are these paper chases, places where you can buy... Again, they are like shirt materials.
This is the first time that the question of stationery has ever been gone into in a talk show.
Well, I can go on at great length about different denominations of ballpoint pens and fibre tips and
yes,
things
I
of that
understand
sort.
that completely.
I mean,
I love
guess
those shops where it's all laid out and you have these great barrels full of hundreds of different colours.
Oh, I know, they're like inedible sweets and
absolutely.
candies, you know, and like that, and you come up with this great sheet. And also, there's a feeling that it's going to actually produce a huge Niagara of creativity. But in fact, all that happens is that you just have piles of pens and no writing. I mean, I've got some, I love these things. You see, these wonderful, these things here, which have got wonderful, sort of subtle tips and things.
Oh, show us that.
You see?
My God, that's got a subtle tip, Robbie. Has yours got a subtle tip like that?
I'd rather not see.
I suppose these. I suppose.
Mine's still got the price tag.
Oh no, but that's such a primitive. That's all your questions. What's going to do?
But everything there. It's all, I've got it written down. Don't let it...
He never knew I was going to sort of raise the pen issue. You see, it's totally...
It's written down here. Don't let him get onto stage.
I'm moving.
How many TV sets have you got?
Well, I think there's one in the house, and I think my daughter's got one somewhere upstairs where she tends to go if I don't want to watch Dallas.
And you do want to watch Dallas?
Well, I like to keep abreast of Dallas because I love the changing identity of the people. The fact that people can be substituted by other people and still continue to be the same person, apparently. I remember my son watching this when, do you remember when Miss Ellie came back after having married, what's his name, and gone to Greece, and then she came back and was played by someone else, and then
Donna
Reed. And Donna Reed looked around the house and says, "It hasn't changed a bit." My son sulkily saying, "How would you know?"
But a season later, she went away again. And,
well, and again, no one noticed the difference.
But I can see why people watch Dallas, I think, because they do watch it for the things the people have. I mean, a swimming pool with a Victoria Principal in it, the state is simple. Are you interested in that kind of thing?
For that you would take up swimming, yes. But I actually, what I tend to think about those sunsets is that I tend to think of, I mean, they're a joke, really, to me. I mean, I don't want to try and sound superior, but I just think it's such a thin joke. Once you've watched one episode, you've laughed as often as you can at I mean, things like the continuity, they must wallop them through very quickly, because you very often see two people having a conversation, and they've obviously done their wide two on the Wednesday, and then they've gone in for their close-ups on the Monday, and then on the other one, somebody else turned up, and you have somebody going, "Really? And everybody just speaks really incredibly whispery. Their lips move all the time. Harry, if you think for 1 minute that you're going to take over this company, you can have another thing." It's all people sneering at each other and being shitty to each other. And they'll have this shot of her. She's standing there, and the wind's blowing her hair like mad, and there's a sunset going on, a nice pink sunset in the background. And they cut to him, and he's an absolutely flat, calm day with blue skies behind him. It's obviously a different day. He's like, "Yeah, well, if you think you're ever going to see our child again." And you just think, would somebody please come on and say, "Isn't that a lovely day? Then you fancy going for a pint? Oh, boy, I haven't seen you for ages. It's really nice to see you, you know? Please, somebody be nice, you know? Or even interesting."
I can see why people watch Dallas. What I can't understand is what they get out of EastEnders. What do they get out of EastEnders?
Well, I think it's a substitute for a common family. It means that everyone now has got the same family, so that there is a topic of conversation which everyone can have with anyone else about a family that is shared by everyone in a way that it wouldn't be. I mean, I can't talk to you about your family, and perhaps if I meet someone else at work, I can't talk to them about their family. But what everyone shares is this piece of common property, which becomes a topic of gossip, and therefore it binds.
Isn't that rather the function of the royal family too, in a way, isn't it? But it's very interesting that you say that, because in a way that sort of EastEnders thing with the whole life sort of revolves around this rather attractive Victorian pub, and everybody knows each other. I tend to think that's rather nostalgic, really. An awful lot of people in the East End live in high-rise flats and haven't a clue who lives on the floor.
Yes, also it's nonsensical in that there seems to be no racial friction at all. There's this strange, multicoloured harmony, which is such a lie.
Well, according to the increasingly demented British press, the royal family is indeed the great soap opera. What do you make of Fleet Street's obsession with the royal family?
Well,
what's going on there?
It's a purely commercial obsession. They know that they can actually sell this because, in fact, it's a common topic. Once you have something which, in fact, is shared by everyone, then it's to the advantage of a newspaper to go on dealing with these, I suppose, rather glamorous figures who are remote and yet near. They seem to have things which they share in common with everyone, and yet at the same time are rather distant. And it becomes a common topic of conversation. It's a way in which the British can recognise themselves as being British.
But for the royals, I mean, just to centre on them, I think life must be very uncomfortable for them under this kind of a thing. I mean, I can see why Prince Charles wants to retreat to Scotland and get away from it. It's no joke for him at all.
But what all that stuff about him being a loony because he planted potatoes? I remember reading that and thinking, well, you could round up everybody in Ayrshire and put them in the bin. You know? So what are you doing today? I'm just going to plant the potato stem. Oh, right, boys, now.
Well, I think it's also because the press has got this idea that the only interesting Englishman who'd be liked by the English is someone who drives helicopters and who, in fact, is an obviously masculine figure like Prince Andrew, and therefore, by contrast to that, Prince Charles must be a loony. Anyone who is seen to be thoughtful or imaginative or perhaps hesitant or doubtful about the way things are must seem to be a loony to the Philistine world of Fleet Street.
And the funny thing, too, is that, I mean, one of the great myths about the British is that we love eccentrics. And yet, as soon as anyone in public life shows any sign of anything approaching eccentricity, they're immediately rejected, which is a bit hypocritical.
Well, especially if it's an eccentric commitment to thoughtfulness. Thoughtfulness is regarded as pansy, probably queer, and certainly loony.
Very doubtful.
Didn't you decline once to bow to Princess Anne, Robbie? Can I put you on the spot on this?
Oh, you've been doing your research, Clive, I can see.
How did you manifest this disinclination?
No, it wasn't. I mean, it was all blown out of all proportion. Apparently, if you meet somebody from the royals, you're supposed to bow, and I just thought that was, in a democracy, and it was just complete nonsense. And I mean, what I said, I mean, it was a rather artificial situation. What happened was you stood at the end. It was at the Palladium, I think it was, and you know, there's the little boxes, and you were supposed to bow to the audience, and then you were supposed to walk further downstage and make a special bow to the royals. And I'd thought, well, you know, and I'm sure Princess Anne wasn't offended by it.
But you see, all that bowing stuff is actually only thought up by anxious production assistants on Royal Command performances. I mean, it's actually...
I'm sure they don't give a monkeys.
No, they don't.
I mean,
exactly. And in fact, very often, I'm sure he bowed.
Did they have the black on the curtsy too, wasn't it? That one's a bit wobbly, look at the curtsy. Oh dear.